Hello, welcome back to week 4 of 52 in the series. So as I've talked about the last couple of weeks, I'm doing 52 different topics on better mental health, and all within about 10 minutes or so, because I feel like sometimes we don't have enough time in the day to help ourselves have better mental health. So if you can allow for less than 10 minutes, then you're doing good. So last week, the topic was on anxiety, and I had such an outpour of response to that because of a lot of people having anxiety or stressful thoughts. So one of the things that we talked about last week was, little coping strategies and skills to deal with such a tremendously overwhelming feeling that we get when we have anxiety. But one of the things I didn't really cover, because I knew that would be a little bit more than a 10-minute topic, is how we get to that point. So this particular topic is on managing our thoughts and trying to not allow for them to run wild into the future, which can cause anxiety, or into the past, which causes us depression. So when we think about our thoughts, we don't always realize that they're actually probably about 10,000 per day is what the number is, 10,000 thoughts per day that we have. And those can range from what time is it, what's for dinner, what's that smell. There's so many different thoughts that race through our minds that most of the time we don't even give any sort of appraisal to for longer than a half a second. But there are some thoughts that we kind of pull down and really want to focus on. So those thoughts are not necessarily the true thoughts. They are the thoughts that are the most stressful, though, and we really want to give appraisal to them. We want to add more fuel to the fire, essentially. So one of the easiest things I have people do is think about what physically happens to you during the day. Does your heart rate go up? Does your blood pressure go up sometimes? Do you feel kind of tingly in your hands? Do you feel like your leg is bouncing? Are you, kind of tapping away at something? Do you get scatterbrained? So those are usually the physiological symptoms of our thoughts. So that's a really easy thing to focus on, is what are our physical symptoms. We're sort of trained to do that at a young age, where we pay attention more to our physical symptoms, which is why we end up at the doctor's office more often, because we have a stomach ache, or we have a headache, or we can't stop bouncing our leg. So there's, this physical piece that has less stigma to it than actually thinking about our mental health. So I always start with the physical. It's the easiest and the least stigmatized. So when you get those physical sensations, the heart rate starts going, I ask people to think about what they were just thinking about. So when you get the high heart rate, pause and think back. What was I thinking? Oh, I was thinking about tomorrow when I have to drive all the way to San Francisco, and what's that going to be like? So you start thinking about the future and things that haven't quite happened yet, and your body starts responding to that. So you're sort of sending a message to the brain that this is a stressful situation, and the brain goes, okay, I gotcha, and it releases cortisol. And we've talked about that in the past videos. Cortisol is your hormone for fight or flight, and we need that. We need to have cortisol appropriately working, but we don't need it to work when you're just simply thinking about driving to San Francisco tomorrow. That's not going to be effective for you in the moment. You don't need to be thinking about that. So one of the challenges that I try and teach my clients is to challenge your thoughts. So you have a really squirrely thought that comes through your mind, like, I'm going to drive to San Francisco tomorrow, and I'm probably going to be stuck in traffic, then I'm probably going to be late getting to where I'm going, or what if I have a panic attack in the car? Oh man, that sort of stuff really gets the heart going, the blood pressure going. Your brain's like, wow, this is a stressful situation. Let's release the cortisol. So you've kind of already just gone into, catastrophizing based on something that hasn't even happened. Mind you, I have driven to San Francisco, and the chances of you getting stuck in traffic and potentially being late, they're kind of real. So what I have people do is, when they get to that anxious state, to think about what they thought about. Okay, well, I was thinking about driving to San Francisco. Well, then the next step is, what thoughts came up after that thought? That I was going to be late, I might get in trouble, I might get fired, whatever your purpose of going to San Francisco is, I might miss my flight. So then we start realistically looking at challenging those belief systems. So could you actually miss your flight? Well, potentially. But what could you do to stop that? You can leave a lot earlier in the morning. So instead of leaving 3 hours before your flight leaves, leave 5. That may mean you're getting up a little earlier or hitting the road a little earlier, but then that means that you are in control of that drive, and you know that's probably not going to be one of the things that happens to me. So it's pretty amazing when we can start when we can start challenging our thoughts. So one of the really neat things that I heard the other day was on a TEDx talk by Shawn Anchor, who has a talk called The Happy Secret to Better Work. I had to write it down because I've forgotten the title. The Happy Secret to Better Work. So it's a TEDx talk or TED Talks, and he goes into about a 12-minute spiel about how 10% of our thoughts and anxiety and mood, our anxiety and our mood and our depression, only 10% is actually in the environment. 90% of our mood comes from within. So if you've ever said to yourself, oh gosh, I wish I could just up and move or live somewhere else, or we need to go on vacation. Sometimes it helps because we change our mood when we're on vacation or in a different town where we live. But most of the time, we drag ourselves to those places, and ourselves is what's the problem. So you can put yourself in a really phenomenal environment, but you're still in your brain and you still think about bad things. So the likelihood of you having a fantastic new life is kind of slim to none. Well, 10%. 10% might have that chance. So 90% of our appraisal of situations, of our mood, meaning anxiousness, depressiveness, anger, it's all a product of what we're thinking. So another example I give to people is just thinking about something basic that maybe a 2-year-old would never have been exposed to. So let's say a big cake. Maybe a 2-year-old from another country or different culture or different upbringing has never seen cake before. You put a piece of cake down in front of them, they don't know what that is. They're just going to look at it. They'll probably play with it and maybe eventually get it to their mouth. But for someone else, like someone who's been battling a food addiction, any sort of mental challenges that they've had centered around food, maybe they're trying to lose weight, they're going to look at that piece of cake and say, that's dangerous. And they might start releasing some sort of stress hormone that, rises their heart rate and their blood pressure and maybe gets them in not a great mood. Or for someone that is just absolutely addicted or obsessed with cake, they're going to get really excited when they see that. But that's a product of our brain. So each situation has a totally different response to it depending on you and your appraisal. So a 2-year-old may not respond to that. Another example is a spider. If you've ever traveled to foreign countries and seen some pretty enormous spiders, you may have a really negative reaction to them. I know I have. I have plenty of Jurassic spider stories to share from foreign countries. But somebody that lives there just kind of shoos it along. They don't care. They know it's not dangerous. They just let it go. The spider doesn't necessarily emit the same response for everyone. So that's why 90% of what our mood is comes from our appraisal in our brain. That's huge. So, anxieties and depressions and different moods like that absolutely are altered by our brain, but there's certainly other pieces to that too. And I always make sure you get a checkup from your medical doctor or naturopathic doctor to ensure that there isn't something biologically going on. Absolutely get other treatments. Go to a chiropractor. Get yourself aligned. Get yourself back into good shape. Go to an acupuncturist. Make sure everything is the way it's supposed to be. Go to a hypnotherapist and unclog some of those old memories and unconscious thoughts. Go to a therapist to look at what your thought process is and help prepare yourself for not having a really bad reaction from something that might actually be pretty neutral. We're challenging our appraisal of that situation. So your thought that creeps into your mind creates a behavior in your body and a mood, and then there's going to be a behavior. So back it up as far as you can and think about, what was I thinking about? What is rolling around in my head that's constantly getting me having this reaction? Then you can heal yourself from within and have those challenge thoughts on a regular basis. And it's very hard to do. It's not normal, but the more that you practice doing it, the better mental health you'll have. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel. You'll get updates on the next 48 topics, 47 topics. Math was not my forte. The next 47 topics over the next 47 weeks. There may be a missed one here or there depending on, scheduling. But also go to my Facebook page, the Whole Body Wellness Center, and you can get little tips and tricks there too. Or you can go to my website at drkmarvin.com. So it's drkmarvin.com. All right, guys, take care. Have a great day and better mental health to you. Cheers.